Thanks for joining the team. I want to sit here and talk to you about something.
Okay.
Andrew, I need your help, buddy. It's getting pretty bad. Something's got to be done. I don't know what. Brad's gone. Todd. It's all grits and roll tide in there.
Yeah.
But I'm asking you to help me.
I think I have the solution. Gentlemen, let's start the show. Above the Curve is back, guys. This is real.
I know, you have no idea how excited I am.
You're excited?
I'm so excited.
Todd, are you excited?
Well, I'll be excited for both of us. Glenn, what's your name again?
Hello and welcome to Above the Curve. I am not Glenn Jones.
Who are you?
I'm Andrew Shrout. I'm joined here today by Brad Nelson.
Hello, everyone.
And Todd Anderson.
Yo.
And we are preparing for the Invitational. The Invitational is going on this weekend. You guys are going to be playing in that Invitational.
We might actually be playing right now.
You guys are
I
playing
might
right
have
now.
just played in a feature match, like right before this is happening.
You guys are playing. You're also here with me.
Yes.
I might be there too.
You might be there too.
Thanks to the magic of television. How do we do it? Magic. We'll never tell.
I'll never tell.
We have 8 rounds of Standard to play at this Invitational, and we're going to break it down for you here. Guys, what do you think is going to be the most played deck in Standard in Charlotte?
Well, it might be that deck that maybe took first and second in LA, along with first and second in Cincinnati this last weekend. I might have been one of those players involved in it as well.
Oh, Brad. Brad might have accomplished something, so he's got to tell us. But
well,
yeah.
to be fair, he didn't quite accomplish something. He came very close to accomplishing
Yes,
something.
I have been hearing the joke, Brad can't close Nelson, a lot this week.
Yes,
Gets it out before I can get it out.
Yeah, Mr. Set of steak knives and pat on the back.
That's all right.
Brad can't close Nelson, referring, of course, to Esper Control.
Yes.
As he mentioned, Esper Control met in the finals of the Star City Standard Open in Los Angeles. It met in the finals of Grand Prix Cincinnati. One of the players in the finals of that Grand Prix, our own, Brad Can't Close Nelson. So Brad, tell us what makes this deck so good and why can't you win a tournament with it?
Which one do you want me to start with?
Let's start with the first.
There's two daggers in your back right now. I'll pull one out so you
thank
can
you.
talk about the other one, and then I'll put it back.
The reason that Esper Control is so good is quite simple. In fact, it's because it's just the best deck and also has the clearest line to victory. Yes, there's a lot of decisions. You have a lot of temples. You have a lot of fixing your draws. But to be honest, because all your cards do something completely different from each other, when you're in a situation where you think you're going to be in one, it's very easy to know what to keep on top and what to put on bottom. Hey, I've got 3 lands and I've got a Jason hand. I guess I want to keep this island. A lot of the plays are very obvious. Plus, all you're trying to do is trade resources all game long and then top deck Sphinx's Revelation, and then you win. You drop 5, 6, 7, 8 cards and just like interact with your opponent with all your mana. You know, you're like, kill that, detention sphere that, hold up a counterspell, untap, play Elspeth, holding up that same counterspell, and you just win. It's very easy. I played awful in top 8. I'm not even gonna lie, I was even sick in that top 8, and I was just like, my deck kept delivering for me. It's just like, whatever you need, buddy, we got it. Jace was my homeboy, but the deck is gonna be not only the most popular deck because of its skill level and power level, it's because of the Scry lands. It runs 12, every other deck's running 4, letting it keep up speed with the rest of the format. And until Mog Fanatic and very aggressive.
Mog Fanatic's
or not
not a
Mog
card
Fanatic,
grab.
Fanatic of Mogus.
There you go.
Yeah, until that guy starts showing up again, I think this deck is just going to stay on top.
Okay. Todd, a deck so good, even Brad can win with it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's just like butter. I can't believe Brad, can win with it, or I don't know, whatever. Margarine.
close.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Brad can almost win with
my
it.
joke
Sorry, excuse me.
floundered just like Brad in the finals. So, all right. So I think Esper Control is obviously a very strong deck. Like, Brad says it's easy to play. I completely disagree. I think that it is one of the more skill-intensive decks in the format, simply because you have to make so many decisions early with your Scry lands. You have to know whether you want to tick down your Jace, up your Jace, whether you keep the 2 pile or the 1 pile, or if your opponent misclicks the 3 pile, but that only happens on Magic Online. So, for the most part, the deck does kind of play itself. You do have these very specific answers for very specific cards, and honestly, like, you have so many powerful cards at your disposal. It's really just which one do I play that's best for the current situation. Like, oh, my opponent happens to have 4 guys in play, so I guess I'll cast Supreme Verdict. Oh, they have Underworld Connections. Guess I'll cast Attention Sphere.
Again, very tough decision.
But the problem actually comes in when, like, do I hold up Counterspell or do I cast Verdict to kill 2 guys? What if they play Stormbreath Dragon after I cast Supreme Verdict? Then I don't have an answer anymore. So while Brad is correct that a lot of your lines are obvious, there are so many decisions that aren't.
Sure.
All right. So you guys think that this deck, by far, the going to be the most played deck?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it is an invitational. We're talking a lot of America's best players showing up, and a lot of them tend to be on the controlling area. They just want to feel like they're in control and making a lot of decisions, and that's great, right? This deck has the longest turns to win a match, so you get to play as much as possible, allowing your skill to end up carrying over, and a lot of players are going to try to attack the format that way. Again, I think there's a couple other decks that the best players in the room are going to end up playing, and we're going to get to them. But for the most part, I have never been proven wrong with this Esper deck yet. It is just by far the most powerful deck, and until somebody like just crushes me in an event and I have a poor finish, I'm going to continue to play it. I mean, maybe it's I miss Jerry and I just got to play Jerry's favorite card. I don't know. I miss Jerry, but
never been proven wrong. You played the deck for 1 week, right?
no, I top-8'd an open with it, and I won an IQ, and those are the only 3 finishes I've had.
All right, so next week's versus video, we're going to have Brad Nelson playing Esper Control versus me playing Skullcrack, because Skullcrack.
Sure. I mean, it does have some bad matchups.
We don't have a bleep button, or else I'd say my normal catchphrase, so,
Get skull cracked,
yes.
I think is what we're...
That's what we're trying.
Yeah, I snuck it through the bleeps. So yeah, Esper, we think going to be the boogeyman. Currently, it's the new boogeyman. Let's talk a little bit about the old boogeyman. And I'm referring, of course, to mono black devotion. Now, I say mono black. We don't know if we're going to see mono black at this tournament.
Of course not. I mean, chocolate ice cream gets boring. Let's
Okay.
just be honest.
Does
you gotta,
what if you just fill it with more chocolate things, like chocolate chunks, chocolate chips? Chocolate's the best color. It's fine.
It is true, but I do think that the best versions of this deck have been tending to go with different colors.
Well, yes and no. Yes, because you're right, and no, because I don't know. I don't have a good argument for this. I just wanted to disagree with you. So
Sure.
Yeah, we'll do the ice cream metagame breakdown later.
All right.
Yeah.
But for now, we're on the standard metagame breakdown. So Todd, you think that mono black is going to be the best build here?
I've played a lot of mono black over the last few months. I think the deck's obviously very strong. I mean, delving into another color does have diminishing returns. Like you have to play a bunch of lands that come into play tapped. There's times where you'll draw the off-color spells and not have the correct mana to cast them. When you're playing things like Nightveil Spectre and Mutavault, like the mana can get really wonky at times, and as we're going to be talking about in a moment, I think there are ways to mitigate that, like not playing Nightveil Spectre, for example, and instead playing Lifebane Zombie. But for the most part, the black decks are strong, but I do want to talk about the multiple variations that we do have on the archetype.
Yeah, and my opinion of this archetype is that mono black was good enough, but it isn't anymore.
Okay.
Pack Rat has lost a lot of mileage, especially in the mirror matches. You used to play Pack Rat because it won the mirrors if unanswered, but now you don't have to play it because you have so many good answers to beat the card.
Yeah, I mean, just having access to Bile in general makes Pack Rat so much worse that,
you don't want to invest all these cards into it.
Exactly, and the fact that now, like, even the blue Devotion decks are splashing white for Detention Sphere, all the Esper decks have Detention Sphere, and all the black decks now have Bile Blight. Almost every deck has some answer to Pack Rat, whereas before that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And Pack Rat was just your easiest route to victory.
I know. Besides Esper or the control variants, where Pack Rat tended to be pretty bad, if you were in a different matchup and you got to make a second Pack Rat, that was just your game plan. You're like, I'm all in on Mutavaults and Pack Rats. Now you can get blown out. So a lot of the great deck builders this past weekend, especially Ifro and David Ochoa, they went for red to help with Rakdos Return, Slaughter Games, Sire of Insanity, and Dreadbore to help out in the control matchups, alongside a couple other players that did really well in both tournaments, going for white, having a better advantage against the blue Devotion decks along with the mirror matches, because you get access to cards like Blood Baron that are hard to deal with in the mirror, along with Revoke Existence to deal with Ereboses and Underworld Connections, the main source of card advantage in the mirror matches. So both decks have their merits and the reasons for using them. But I do think that right now you need the extra colors because Mono Black can't get the job done against Esper. I know this because I played Mono Black 4 times on Sunday, and that's the only reason I did so well in the event because I just got to skyrocket to the finals.
I mean, you make a really good point that splashing another color gets you access to more cards that actually can interact with things you couldn't normally interact with because of how, you know, black is designed as a color. Enchantments are specifically tough for you to target because, you know, if you're not splashing another color, because black just doesn't have access to anything that actually does that. Revoke Existence is huge in so many matchups, including the mirror, where since Pack Rat is no longer a factor thanks to BioBlight, Underworld Connections and Erebos are literally the only cards that matter anymore. So having access to like 2, 3, even maybe 4 Revoke Existence for the mirror, along with your Duresses and Thoughtseizes to sort of keep that down, the easiest way to win is to gain card advantage by taking away your opponent's ability to gain card advantage and then drawing the ways that you have to gain card advantage. Now, if everyone else is playing the red version, having access to Revoke Existence when they have access to something like Rakdos Return, which is not that backbreaking in that matchup, since simply because Unrolled Connections is like so good, even when they're making you discard most of your hand. I think that it's just really important to, if you want to beat the mirror match, to play white over red.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think that black-white is going to be the most represented?
No, I
maybe,
think black-red is going to be the most represented, though I think black-white is probably a better choice if you expect to play against a lot of the mirror.
Yeah, I'm actually exact opposite of everything you just said.
Okay.
I mean, I think that there's going to be more black-white, but I think black-red is going to be better positioned because of the Esper matchup.
Okay. All right. So, and then mono black, just mono black on its own, probably a dinosaur.
It'll show up, but it is outdated.
Fair enough. All right. So we've covered mono black devotion. That was the monocolored devotion deck that really rose to prominence last fall. But
After
yes.
a different.
Yes. Sort of the yin to mono black's yang. Let's talk about mono blue devotion. How do we feel like that deck is positioned now, Brad?
I definitely think that mono blue is in a great spot if it runs the white cards. I think the white helps it become a little bit more of a controlling deck. It gives it at least some ways to interact that aren't just creatures. Because let's be honest, a lot of the creatures in this deck are not that good. They're just there to help out with your Master Waves and your Binding of Thassa's and your Thassa's themselves. Outside of that, if you fall behind, sometimes it's really hard to catch up since a lot of decks are having the right answers to Master of Waves. So because of this, I think that the white is great, and especially because I feel really behind when I play against a good blue splash white devotion player. That said, Sam Black is probably the poster child for this archetype, and he still likes his mono blue version and almost ended up beating me in the GP itself. So I think that they both have their merits, but I tend to be afraid of the deck that has Detention Sphere and Revoke Existence and Glare of Heresy. I think Glare is going to be very good this weekend, and just having access to that card is really good. So, I mean, I'm on the white splash. What about you, Todd? What do you think?
I mean, honestly, I think the white splash is probably solid, you know, having access to Detention Sphere just to be able to like take care of, you know, all these Elspeth tokens so that, you know, your creatures can attack through and actually either kill the Elspeth or just kill your opponent. But on the other side of the coin, you also get Afara, which is a gigantic threat against control itself. The problem there being that I don't know if Afara is a better threat against control than Biden of Thassa, and that's really the slot that's kind of, you know, butting heads with each other. And I think that cards like Rapid Hybridization just have so much value in a deck like this, being able to, you know, effectively counter your opponent's removal spell for a single mana and sometimes even growing your creature in the process. Or, you know, just taking care of an opposing threat and then using something like Tidebinder Mage or Flyers to invalidate it. Since, you know, the deck is playing Detention Sphere as its main spell now, you know, you don't really have that much room for things like Rapid Hybridization, and the deck loses a lot of the cool angles that it used to be able to attack on. Detention Sphere adds a lot. You get a bunch of great sideboard cards when you add white, but having lands that come into play tapped or deal you damage just adds to the problems that the deck can already kind of flounder because of things like drawing Nightveil Spectre and a Mutavault in your opening hand. Like, they just don't really mesh together very well. So I mean, you kind of exacerbate that problem.
Yeah, and even like the adding of the Godless Shrines to help have more white sources, but then your Tidebinder Mages sometimes just can't.
Yeah,
come into play.
Tidebinder Mage or Frostburn Weird, you like can't cast them. So things like that happen pretty regularly when you start adding another color to the deck, and I'm not sure if it's worth it. Sam doesn't think it's worth it, but I mean, the white has, you know, already shown that it's capable with top 8 at the Grand Prix.
Both did.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Sure.
Yeah.
So blue-white devotion or mono-blue devotion, which is going to see more play this weekend at the Invitational. Brad?
I definitely think it's going to be the splashier deck that splashes, because
Proud of you, Brad.
people like the hype, people like the new variations. And
Yeah, they
every
just
deck,
like new toys. I mean,
and
you give someone a new toy to play with, and they're going to choose that over the old toy any day of the week.
I agree, but I do think it's going to be good, mostly because when I was testing the black decks, like the mono blue matchup, I had only one role to play. I was just killing their stuff and trying to gain card advantage. I was trying to make pack rats. Against Attention Sphere, I don't know what angle I have to attack from. I can't really invest into anything or make a straight game plan. So I think that the white helps out in that matchup, and I do think it also helps out against Esper. Now, I don't play the mirror match because I haven't played the blue decks that much, but again, I think Answers to Thassa are awesome. So like that probably helps in that matchup too. So I just think that splashing white is the best way to go. You're not as aggressive, you're not as tempo-based, but you do have a lot of more angles, and you can come back from more bad board positions.
All right. Let's move on to a different deck. We've talked about blue decks. We've talked about black decks. We've talked about blue and black decks.
My old love. Let's talk about my old love.
Control decks. We've talked about bad guys so far.
Yes.
Let's be real. Let's talk about some good guys. Let's talk about...
let's talk about the baddest guys.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Monsters. Monsters is a deck that has... it was starting to emerge before Born of the Gods was even printed. It kind of rose to prominence early after Born of the Gods became legal. It's tapering off a little. There's been a green-red version. There's been a Jund version. Which version do you guys think is going to be the one that sees the most success here in Charlotte?
Well, this is a big talking point for me.
Here we go. Brad just talking about himself some more.
No. I'm not talking about myself. It's that I think that Courser Crewfix is not a Monsters and a Jund card. I don't think it just hits both archetypes. I'm definitely under the opinion that you should either be flesh blooding if you're green-red and being very aggressive, and with more scavenging uses, or if you're trying to play all these planeswalkers and all these spells, but your Domries still need to do something, that's where Courser fits in. Because you know how to activate your Domries then. Sometimes you can fight when there's nothing on top, or you're getting rid of all your extra lands. The games go longer and you have these big spells to catch up, but I see these like green-red monster decks playing Courser Crewfix, and I don't care. I get all this free information, they're not attacking me for much, and I'm able to set up draws where I can finally Detention Sphere their thing and hold a counterspell, because I'm only bleeding 2 points a turn. Whereas if you're just playing oozes and you're trying to go beat down and you're trying to get way more aggressive, and you have the ability to just Gorklan Fleshblood them out of nowhere, you can actually beat the Elspeth turn. Like when people played Elspeth, I could kill them. You know, that's not something that green-red monsters can do. So I definitely think that Jund monsters are going to be more prevalent, but all the green-red monster decks are going to run Courser, but shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree on a lot of points that Brad's making. You know, the Jund decks do tend to slow the game down. They like to play bigger spells. They like to Rakdos Return out of the main deck. They like to make sure that their Domries are gaining card advantage. But when I'm playing, like, actual green-red monsters, I don't want a 3-mana 2/4 in my deck because it only attacks for 2 damage,
Yeah.
you know? I don't think that Gorklan Rampager belongs in the same deck as a 3-mana 2/4 that kind of gains you card advantage and kind of gains you life. I just want to get them dead as quick as possible, you know? I'm not trying to romance them, I'm trying to murder them, so...
Yeah,
like...
I also feel like Courser Crewfix already did its job in the sense that, you know, like every season there's like a card that invalidates a strategy and it doesn't even have to go into a deck. It's like Obstinate Bailout. They're like, okay, fine, we won't play aggressive decks because they're scared of this card. And some decks ran it, some didn't. And that's what Courser did. Courser came in and all these decks trying to run Precinct Captain are just like, all right, I'm off it, you know, we're done. And so now these cards are gone. Soldier Pantheon, Precinct Captain, they're just not seeing any play anymore. And it's because of Courser Crewfix. But now that all these decks aren't there, you're not preying on anything. You're literally just a bad body that doesn't interact in combat, that just gets to show your opponent what's on the top of your deck. Every Goblin Guide player out there is just like, can't believe the logic of this. It's like, you know, I have this ability and I love doing it to you and I give you free lands, you know, like, and I like getting this information and you're just giving it to me. So I don't think that the card is in the correct position right now.
Okay. So if Courser Crewfix was a card that kind of put the green-red monsters decks in a certain metagame position, and you guys don't think that card belongs anymore, either of you?
Yeah.
You want to play a more get 'em dead style of monsters?
If I'm not playing the black, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, if you're playing the black, I think that Courser is good because you have a different kind of game plan. But at the same time, I don't think that those builds should play Gorklan Rampager, for example. I think they should be more mid-range controlling versions instead of these, like, kill you out of nowhere with, like, Stormbreath, you know, plus Gorklan, or, like, Stormbreath plus Fleshblood, or what have you.
Okay. So you want to play green-red as the get him dead strategy.
Yes.
Who are we getting dead at this point? How does that match up?
Who do we not get dead? You attack with a 5/5. They either block or don't. You Gore-Clan Rampager and then blood them, and they're dead.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
That's how those cards work. Are we like the deck? As I was saying, kind of rose to prominence because it had Courser in a field that there were a lot of precinct captains.
The deck was
practice
being
captains.
played by both BBD and CVM in multiple opens. BBD top 8 and open before Corso Crewfix was even printed. Brad played it at the Pro Tour.
And
with
BBD also
Theros.
beat it in the finals of Louisville.
Sure.
Yeah, and like Brad played it at the Pro Tour and was playing like the super combo-y Flesh Blood for X4 Gore-Clan X4 version, and it's just really silly to think that like Courser is what pushed the deck into prominence when the deck was already very good before that. Just being able to cast Domri Raid on turn 2 is unbelievable in this format because it can either start letting you kill creatures for basically free or draw creatures against the control decks. So honestly, I'm not really sure why like people even started splashing black in the first place. I have no idea why they put 3 mana 2/4s in their deck to gain you life. Like I never wanted Oracle of Maldai in my aggressive deck. Like what are people doing?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
All right. Let's talk about the new kid on the block for a second.
Let's just not hype this
Does
deck.
it have a lot of hits? Because Chinese food makes me sick.
It doesn't have a lot of hits. It has a lot of burn. It has a lot of fire. Red, white, burn, the deck we're talking about. This is a deck that in the last 2 weeks, I saw a lot of. I saw it win the Open in Seattle in the hands of Neil Hartman. I saw it top 4 in LA in the hands of Vidianto Wijaya. Grand Prix Cincinnati, I don't think anyone saw. That deck was not in Grand Prix at all.
I have a point. I don't think that the red-white deck that won Seattle was really a burn deck. I think that there's two kinds of strategies involved with like when people talk about burn at the moment. Magic Online actually has just been running rampant with the burn deck, and all it plays is as creatures is Chandra's Phoenix and Ash Zealot, and then it just has the rest as burn spells. Whereas the one that won the Open in Seattle was playing also Boros Reckoner, Stormbreath Dragon, Chandra Power Master, and a lot more like mid-rangey type cards, like even like Chain to the Rocks.
Yeah, big Boros.
And yeah, it was more of like a big Boros deck that people just kind of associated with burn. The actual burn deck that's been running around on Moto is just unbelievably frightening because they have like access to like 20 different burn spells, including Skullcrack, War Leader's Helix, Magma Jet, and the like, and they can literally just kill you from 20 on like turn 5, and especially so after board when they have access to Toil and Trouble against the control decks. Like that card straight up killed me in in the Grand Prix in one of my rounds, and I just didn't think there was anything I could do. Like he's like on the play, turn 3 Toil, and I'm just like, all right, I'm done.
I mean, it is a very powerful
Trouble,
effect.
excuse me.
And yes, that deck does frighten me as someone that wants to play Esper, because it does punish all the Esper decks. Not only do you run 12 tap lands, so the Ash Zealots and Chandra's Phoenix get a little bit of work done, and then while you're spending your time interacting with these cards, the opponent is just throwing burn spells at your dome. So if you don't have dedicated cards for this matchup, they can just run you over, and I actually think they will run you over. The issue being, if Green Red Monsters keeps playing Courser, which they will, that makes it a tough matchup, along with Mono Blue is abysmal. So these decks really want to prey on the Mono Black decks and the Esper control decks in the field, and I think that's a fine choice. I think the deck is good. The problem is, I have an issue wanting to bring Shocks to a tournament. Like, there's just a little bit of variance in that where you don't get to make a lot of controlling decisions. But it is good. Like, it has been doing very good on Magic Online, very good, and it could be a very good contender for this tournament.
Okay. You guys both said you think that Esper Control is going to be the most played deck in Charlotte.
By far.
Yeah, Esper's going to be, I mean, the thing is, Esper's going to be the most played deck. Black variants are going to be the second most played deck. Sure. And the burn deck is very good against both of them. Like, just being able to play, like, main deck Skullcracks is just huge against people who are trying to, like, Revelate and Grey Merchant to get back in the game. And, for example, if your opponent just, like, taps out on turn 5 for Grey Merchant and tries to gain, like, 4 to 6 life or whatever, and you just Skullcrack them, you're effectively dealing them, like, 8 points of damage or whatever, right? And then you get to untap and just finish the job because your opponent tapped out and gave you this huge window. So, I mean, the same can be said for Sphinx Revelation decks, except they also have the ability to do things at instant speed, so you have to be a little more tricky with your spells. But I still think that it's just really bad, and unless someone, as an Esper player, goes into the tournament completely prepared, playing like a ton of dispels, a lot of things like that. Like they're just gonna get overwhelmed by these burn spells because their deck is designed to interact with creatures and not burn spells.
All right. So we think that Burn is going to be well positioned against the 2 best decks. Although, as you said, Brad, registering shock, actual shock, not something that's in everyone's range.
I mean, if any of you out there like follow a lot of the decks that I end up playing that are anti-top tier decks, you'll see that they have a lot of angles that they can attack from, and they're not just cornered into one specific strategy. So you just can attack from multiple angles, and that's why I like decks like that. Like the red-white burn deck is very good on the surface, and the way it plays out is good. But if you ever get into a weird position or fall behind, you just lose the game, and you don't really have a way to dig yourself out unless it's literally just having the best card on top of your deck, and every time you Magma Jet, it's perfect. If you ever stumble, you just lose. So I think the deck is going to be very good. I'll probably lose to it, but I don't think we'll see a lot of them making top 8 because of their standard results.
How popular do you think this deck will be?
Maybe 10%.
Okay.
I think 10% is actually a little high, but
yeah.
But I mean, it'll show up. It'll win a couple camera matches. I think there will be some guys like. I know that Ali Andrazi is like one of those guys who's not really known for playing burn decks, but like when a burn deck is good, he'll pick it up because he's like pretty decent at being able to modify his range as far as decks are concerned. We won't see a lot of people who like control decks. Like I don't think Sheen Serrani's ever going to do that, even though he did play burn at like the modern Grand Prix, I think. So we may see some people kind of switch out of their normal comfort zone to play something like this, just because I do think it's really well positioned against the current top 2 decks in the metagame. But as Brad said, I think it will lose to itself a lot of times.
I think that a good deck choice this weekend would have been very much like the Sandy Dog MTG mono red deck that he played in Cincinnati. Just all the 1-drops, all the Fanatics, Mutavault, Chandra's Phoenix, is only like 6 burn spells, 4 Skullcracks in sideboard. That deck would be frightening, but again, people just want to play the burn cards as opposed to just the Fire Fist Strikers.
Fair enough. So you think people should be erring a little more on the side of getting people dead?
Oh yeah, with all the creatures, for sure. That punishes. I am so afraid of Burning Tree Emissary into like one guy.
Gorehouse Chainwalker?
Gorehouse Chainwalker, when I'm playing 12 tap lines, I'm like, I'll get to you in 2 turns. Like, just give me a couple turns.
Yeah, like you've already taken 10 damage, from 2 creatures by the time you can cast a Prime Verdict, let alone like a counter spell.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, cool. Well, that's it for us for now. For Todd Anderson, Brad Nelson, I'm Andrew Shrout here at Above the Curve. Stick around. We've got more coverage of the Invitational here in Charlotte.